The recreation deck of the GS Endeavour hummed with the usual evening chatter. Officers from a dozen species mingled over synthetic drinks, their translators creating a babel of overlapping conversations. Emma Chen sat quietly in the corner, nursing a glass of water, her small frame tucked into an oversized chair that made her look even tinier than her 5'2" stature. Suggested. Jack Morrison watched from across the room as the new Crovaxi security officer, a towering 8-foot reptilian named Thrak, approached Emma's table. Jack's jaw tightened. He'd seen this before. Human, Thrak's voice boomed through his translator, drawing attention from nearby tables. You are assigned to the combat division, yes? This must be an error. You are diminutive, fragile. Emma looked up slowly, her dark eyes meeting Thrak's golden slits. She said nothing, simply took another sip of water. To HRK single quotes, S throat sac, inflated the Crovaxi equivalent of laughter. Perhaps you should request transfer to medical or communications. Combat is for warriors, not... He gestured dismissively. Decorations. Several alien officers chuckled. Even some of the human crew looked uncomfortable. Avoiding Emma's gaze, Jack started forward, but Captain Yolanara, a four-armed Theshan, placed a hand on his shoulder. Wait, she said softly, her compound eyes glittering with what might have been amusement. Emma set down her glass with deliberate precision. I appreciate your concern for my welfare, she said, her voice quiet but carrying clearly in the sudden hush. But I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Concern? Thrak snorted. I state only fact. The Crovaxi are bred for war across 10 generations. We face the galaxy's greatest threats. I have personally defeated 3 Vrillian shock troopers in solo combat. What could someone of your stature possibly contribute to a real battle? Emma stood. The movement was fluid, controlled, the stance of someone who knew exactly how their body moved through space. She was still barely half Thrak's height. 3 Vrillians, she repeated. Impressive, more than you will ever face, small human. I faced a Titan. The recreation deck went utterly silent. Even the background hum of the ship's system seemed to pause. Thrak's throat sac deflated. You lie. No one survives a Titan-class encounter alone. They are siege weapons. Walking apocalypses. I didn't say I was alone, Emma replied. My platoon was 37 strong when we dropped on Kepler 442b, standard peacekeeping operation. The mining colony had gone dark, and we were sent to investigate. She paused, her eyes distant. The Titan emerged from the canyon 6 hours after we landed? Jack knew this story. Everyone in Earth's military knew it. But hearing Emma tell it herself was different. The first volley killed 9 of us before we could establish cover, Emma continued, her voice steady. Plasma cannons that could melt through our dropship like tissue paper. Its shields could deflect orbital strikes. Standard protocol said to retreat, call for air support, evacuate. But there were 300 civilians in the colony's underground bunkers, and the Titan's next bombardment would have collapsed every tunnel system within 10 kilometers. She looked up at Thrak. So we didn't retreat. Suicidal foolishness, Thrak muttered. But his voice lacked its earlier confidence. Calculated sacrifice, Emma corrected. Lieutenant Zhang Shi was our squad leader. She understood something most people don't about Titan-class machines. They're programmed with predictive combat algorithms based on expected enemy behavior. They anticipate retreat, defensive positions, ranged engagement. Emma's hand drifted to her side, where Jack knew a vicious scar cut across her ribs. We did the unexpected. We advanced. Madness, breathed the Valkyrian pilot from nearby table. 28 of us charged a 100-meter-tall war machine armed with weapons that could level cities, Emma said. We used the terrain, the canyons, the mining tunnels, the colonists' excavation charges. We knew most of us wouldn't make it. The Titan's point defense systems cut down another 14 before we reached its legs. She closed her eyes briefly. I was carrying 50 kilos of explosive charges when Sergeant Okonkwo boosted me up its maintenance shaft. The Titan's sensors were oriented outward, expecting long-range threats. It never calculated that something as small and fragile as a human could be crawling up its interior structure. The leg joint, Jack found himself saying. You blew the hydraulics. Emma nodded. The primary actuator on its left leg. When it collapsed, Lieutenant Jiang's team hit the exposed power conduit with everything we had. It took 47 minutes to die, and it killed another 8 of us while it did. But it died. She turned her full attention back to Thrak. 6 of us walked away from Kepler 442b, 6 out of 37. I was the smallest person in that platoon. Do you know what Lieutenant Jiang said when I volunteered to carry those charges? Thrak said nothing. She said, "Good, you're small enough to fit through the maintenance shaft. Light enough that Okonkwo can throw you. And tough enough to not die from what comes next." She was right about 2 of those things. Emma gestured to the combat division insignia on her uniform, a simple chevron, but one that every military officer in the galaxy recognized. Humans don't judge warriors by their size, Thrak. We judge them by what they're willing to face, what they're willing to sacrifice, what they can endure. She picked up her water glass again. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Thrak stood motionless for a long moment. Then slowly, deliberately, he performed the Krovexy gesture of respect, dropping to one knee and pressing his clawed hand to his chest. I spoke in ignorance, Combat Officer Chun. The error was mine. Emma inclined her head. Apology accepted? Now, if you'll excuse me, I have an early shift. As she walked toward the exit, the recreation deck remained silent. Jack caught her eye and smiled. She rolled her eyes but smiled back small, and fierce and absolutely terrifying to anyone who truly understood what she'd survived at Captain Yelanara's voice carried. Across the deck as conversations slowly resumed. Let that be a lesson to all new crew. Humans measure themselves by different standards. Underestimate them at your peril. Jack watched Emma disappear down the corridor. Somewhere in the galaxy, another threat was brewing, another impossible challenge was waiting. And when it came, he knew exactly who he wanted standing beside him, someone who'd looked at a 100-meter war god and decided it could bleed, small, perhaps. But titanium was small too, gram for gram. And titanium could endure almost anything, just like Emma Chun.